like to call the meeting of December 11th to order, 6 o'clock. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two that I know of, additions or changes to the current agenda. We're going to add an 8.6, correspondence and workshop reschedule. And the language for executive session will be amended to read as followed. Following the motion to adjourn the executive session, we shall discuss particular individuals. Does anybody have any other changes to the agenda? May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the November 14th regular meeting minutes?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is 3.1 through 4.2, treasurer's report, financial report, consideration of claims, transportation report, cafeteria report, extracurricular advisors, and coordinator. Motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations to Bridget.
I just wanted to clarify, the Model UN advisor comes with a stipend?
It does,
Okay, and so that goes to Amy,
yes.
even though it's not specifically stated, okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
And that brings us to our nightlights. Kevin?
I'll go first, yeah.
Nope.
Yep. So good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming. As we continue to highlight the many wonderful people in our district and the good things going on in our district, it's my pleasure, on behalf of the board, our admin team, our director of transportation, to recognize Ryan Bain. For many of you that don't know, Ryan is a full-time art teacher here. We have a real shortage on bus drivers, and Ryan took it upon himself to become certified as a bus driver within our district, and that's not an easy task nowadays with the New York State certification process. And Ryan went through that whole process. He's now a full-time bus driver for us. He has a regular route in the morning. He then comes in, does his full-time teaching duty. On top of that, he drives our spectator bus to the Dome, takes boatloads of kids up. He's the one cheering, leading our kids in cheers. He's a ski club advisor. He's an art advisor. Does anything else we ask him to do. So Ryan, on behalf of the board, the district, everybody involved, thank you for all you do for HCS and for our students. So we appreciate you and thank you. Come on up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep, thank you.
Debating on who's taking it.
Sorry.
He was fine. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. So we have more night lights for you. I just wanted to recognize a couple students who came to me sometime in October with an idea. It was an idea to do a food drive for those who are less fortunate during the holidays. And I said, you know what, that's a really good idea. I said, I'll tell you what, I need to know a little bit more information. so I said, I turned it back to them. I said, can you like kind of come up with, well, who do you want to collect for what organization, where will we do the collection, when will we do it, how are we going to do it? So they eagerly went back, and a day or two later they came back and had a nice proposal written up for me, answering all those questions that I asked, which was really cool. So I said, that's great. I think this is a good idea. We got a nice start here. So I said, why don't we meet with, and they wanted to collect food for the food cupboard for people in need this time of year. So I said, let's meet with someone from the food cupboard. So Mrs. Collins was gracious enough to come to school. We had a nice formal meeting in my office, and the girls came, and they asked really good questions, and we determined that, you know, the food cupboard they didn't need just food. They needed supplies, and particularly they needed like toothpaste and toothbrushes and shampoos, and that their soaps are always running out of these sorts of things. They gave us a nice list of things that we could do. So I probably should say the name first. It's Chelsea Akampora and Morgan Paul, and they're sitting right here. So if you haven't figured that out already. So the next step, I said, well, let's put a letter together then, and something that we could send home requesting the things that the food cupboard needed. So a few days later, my office came the girls with a letter with all the things to send. So I had my secretary type it up nice for them, and we put it out to families, and it went home. And then food started coming in like the next couple of days. So it was pretty interesting. So if you turn to the back there, it got really interesting about the second week of October. We came to school on a Monday, and Monday afternoon, someone called me out to the lobby and said, you gotta see what's out here. And so we went out there, and it's hard to see, but there's well over $1,000 worth of supplies here. And the part that you might not notice about it is the supplies that are there were the ones that we had put on the list that we really needed the most. You can't see it, but behind them is a huge box of toiletries and shampoos and whatnots. Everything that we asked for that was on the list were delivered. This is John Goodnow. He's one of our students that should be recognized today too. It was him and his family that over that previous weekend went shopping. They went to Walmart and filled their vehicle full of all the supplies that were needed. So along with those supplies and all of the supplies, we on a rainy afternoon before Thanksgiving, we went over. The girls are awesome. They helped carry everything in. I barely fit in that van back there, by the way, right? I mean, there was food rolling all over the floor. And when we got to the food cupboard, I mean, it's not a huge place you've been in there, but we ran out of space to put all the supplies that they had brought. Mrs. Collins was there to greet us, and she couldn't be happier this time of year to have some of those much really needed supplies. So I wanted to recognize the ladies for their hard work, but I wanted to just highlight it by saying a few words. And for Morgan and Chelsea, you were thoughtful in this to begin with. So you were thinking of other people. You were mindful of the other people and what they needed. You were creative in the way that you put it all together. You used problem solving. You came to me and we worked it all together. You organized everything. I mean, I did very little for this, to be honest with you. They had the ideas, they wrote the letters, they delivered the food. I mean, I really did, it's all them. You know, they had to communicate their ideas in writing. They worked together to collaborate with each other, but then also with the food cupboard. And all of that is really what we're trying to do with students and what we hope all of our students are able to do. We talk a lot about project-based learning. This is a true example of it. And just as important as all of those skills they learned in the process of doing this, I think they probably got some self-efficacy out of it, some confidence, and even some happiness and joy for themselves. And it's a really good lesson of what giving and being thoughtful of others can really helped all of us. So I wanted to thank them. And they are night lights for December as well. So come on up and get a picture taken.
Fix that one spot.
Can you take a picture of that? That's okay.
Good job.
You guys don't have to stick around.
If you would like to stay, you're more than welcome.
He's more than welcome.
We'll also pause for a second if you would like to leave, you are more than welcome.
Do you want to go watch the basketball game? I'm going to go to church class. I think that's where we're supposed to be.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah,
Thank you.
Pick an awesome job, lady.
I appreciate you. I came for
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Everybody came for you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good job, girls.
Great job, ladies.
That brings us to our teacher presentation. So, if you would. You are welcome.
There we go. Oh, hi, I'm Robin Dennedy. I am the speech pathologist here at Hamilton, and I had some summer curriculum hours, and I worked on Tier 1 and Tier 2 RTI supports for speech and language. And so I kind of brainstormed this project because we have had such an increase in students in the last, I'd say maybe since May, needing IEP speech, so I could no longer do speech improvement. We got 6 new kids over the summer, and since school year started, we've gotten 4 more. So we had to find ways for classroom teachers to be able to implement speech for our kids who don't qualify for IEP services. This is our RTI drive, and it started very small at just articulation, expressive language, and receptive language. So expressive language is how well you use language, and receptive language is how you understand. Well, I don't know if any of you have heard me say, speech is everywhere and includes everything. So I have memory, I've added a whole bunch of other things because just as I started, we had so many resources. And I think the person before me had started planning for this because we had these 3 books sitting on the shelf in the classroom, if anyone wants to take a look. So you can go to the next one. This is some norms that I found that I share with teachers about our speech sound development. That has been the main area of RTI services that were needed this year. So those are the different norms for different ages. And then I found some screeners that classroom teachers could do right within the classroom. That is for pre-K and kindergarten. And then these are activities and different stuff that I found. So I found a whole group of teacher scripts to teach every speech sound that I could teach. And I also shared this with New Life. So the teachers at New Life are doing this as well. And I know that our 5th grade teachers are using it, our 3rd grade, and 1st grade. And then in the middle, that's more R sounds because R's are the trickiest. And then those are more activities that I have shared with our teachers. Another area that we have had a lot of RTI concerns with is stuttering this year. So those are just some of the tips that I found and have. The book that you have, Michelle, has every possible speech need you could ever imagine and about 20 different ways to remediate it. Maybe, well, that one goes up to 40. Different ways to remediate it within the classroom. And then this is just another one. So the one that you have right here, the RTI in action, that has all expressive and receptive language, and it has sample activities for grades K, 1, and 2, and it has sample activities teachers can do right in their classroom from tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and I organize it in a way where I can easily dispense this out to teachers. So our teachers are wonderful about knowing the needs of their kids and advocating for them. So they always stop me in the hall, oh, my kid needs this. And I'll be like, oh, let me go to my classroom and I'll send it right to you. So it has really streamlined the process, which has been very helpful to me and just being more organized, and especially as we try to help those kids that sometimes don't always get helped. So, do you have any questions?
So this is the main, so teachers, do they implement this like with the whole class, or is this more for individual?
Both. It depends on the needs. Some have, I didn't include it, I have visuals of every mouth and how you, well, every sound and how a mouth produces that sound. So many of the teachers have those up with their alphabets. And then it kind of just depends on the needs, because not every kid needs R, but the teachers now have the script. So it kind of just depends on their needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll work, but looks like a lot of you. Great job, thank you. Brings us to 6.2, which is community participation. We have some new business to attend to. We have a resignation, a motion to accept the resignation of Bridget Cook as a full-time special education teacher effective December 17th, with sincere appreciation for services rendered to the district.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion would be an exec session. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have some appointments to make. If I could have a motion for all 4 appointments.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to recommend, or to approve the recommendation of the Committees on Special Education and Preschool Education.
I'll move.
Second.
All discussion would be an exec session. Those in favor, please.
Aye.
Opposed? That brings us to policies. We have a second reading, and we need a motion to adopt these policies, either new or revised, as recommended by the policy committee and the superintendent. We have 0020, 7105, 7300, 8502.2. Motion?
I'll move. Second.
And any discussion within those?
I really feel like we need to rename 7105 to suicide prevention, please.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes.
Please?
Yes.
Which is how we had originally discussed
Yeah.
it, but.
It's currently just titled suicide, so that's why she's bringing
We need a suicide prevention
Thought I
policy,
should.
not.
Correct.
it. So suicide prevention.
So with that amendment, I am happy to move forward.
Anybody else?
And this 8502.2,
Mhm.
that's just a regulation. So there's no board action needed on the agenda.
Correct.
And again, the 7105, the suicide prevention policy, is just the policy stating that a regulation will be created. There's a regulation attached, which is not the regulation that has been written here yet. That was just a sample, just to clarify that. It's really just that policy, that one paragraph or 2 paragraph policy.
Thank you for your work on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to the budget presentation. So if Matt could, please take over, and we'll let you speak from back there. Is that easier?
I'll just put the graphics up on the board, and I'll probably kind of stay up towards this area just to a little more closer to you folks. You're going to be hearing a lot more from me in the next 5 months, obviously, just with the timing and budget development and time of year. As we've been talking throughout the fall, you folks with Bill, through your work together, and then certainly with me and through Bill, we've had conversations about the budget process and being more in tune throughout the whole process and being given more information. So when Bill and I sat down, we thought, really, as we begin to embark on the whole budget process, that it may be helpful to look at some historical data and some trends that really are impacting what's happened with the budget and continues to impact the budget development process. So what we've done here is we've looked at some historical data from the last 10 years. We sort of honed in on 10 years as to capture enough data to sort of show trends, but not going way back that it becomes irrelevant. So all the things that I'll present on tonight and talk about are from that same last 10 completed school years. So there's no cherry-picked years singled out. It gives you a look at trends over the last 10 years. Now, I'm going to sort of talk and focus on each of these graphics individually, but there's really three main goals that Bill and I had, and they correlate to each of the 3 main graphics that we're going to show. The first is that every year in the budget development process, what's first and foremost and most important in the process is student needs. And how can we address the needs of all of our students, right? Every student, every day. The second is to draw attention, and it should be a reminder because we harp on it year after year. We have to be aware of the major cost drivers that are impacting the budget. And in one case, it's directly tied to student needs. In the other case, indirectly, but applicable to all expenditures in the budget. And then the last part, sort of in closing, is when we get into the budget, any significant budget conversations revolve around personnel. That's just the reality. Over 70% of our budget, which you'll see in a few minutes, is personnel, meaning salaries and benefits directly tied to faculty and staff and all of our employees, which in most cases are providing direct services to our students. So those are the 3 main points. So these visuals are available through board docs. Certainly have them here in the office. And again, these are all real figures for the last 10 completed years here at HCS. So they're not projections, they're not estimates, these are actual figures. So with regard to student needs, we thought it would be a good starting point to look at our student population and really some pretty significant changes in our student demographics here. If you go back to 2009-10, the blue line represents our total K-12 enrollment. Now the reason it's K-12, not pre-K-12, is because through SED, the reportable numbers comparatively for free and reduced lunch students and students with disabilities are reported on a K-12 basis too, so it's apples to apples. You can see we had 585 kids take K-12. Last year we were at 545. So that should come as no surprise. It's been pretty well documented, pretty well talked about that we've had a decline in enrollment, not just here, but in the region as a whole. The bottom 2 lines are what we really need to focus on, and this is where it really ties into the budget. We've seen a really big change in student demographics here, which directly ties into student needs. As Robin was just saying in her presentation, the number of kids receiving IEP speech, which pulls her away from doing speech improvement, that has a budgetary impact. It certainly has an impact on us reaching kids. The top line, the red line, shows our free and reduced lunch numbers. Now again, these are actual numbers of students that we had that qualified or directly certified as students in need based on free and reduced lunch numbers. I don't have the exact figure, but I believe, just to give you some context, the threshold, I believe, for a family of 4 is a total household income of somewhere around between $40,000 and $45,000. So below that would qualify a student. Back in 2009-10, 110 students out of 585 were under that classified as needy. That's about 19%. Last year we were up to 177 of our 545, which is 33%. So 1 in 3 kids at HCS K-12 meet the free and reduced lunch threshold. That's eye-opening. I mean, that is a significant increase. If you're here in the morning, I know when I first came here, if you wandered down by the cafeteria in the morning, you could count on 2 hands how many kids got breakfast in the morning. Our cafeteria now in the morning is jumping with needy students who we're serving breakfast, which is great. But there are indicators all over the place that show this increase in need. The next line, the yellow line, is students with disabilities. So these are actual students that have gone through the Committee on Special Ed and have an IEP, or classified students with disabilities. It's tough to tell with the color, I'm sorry, but we had 69 kids out of 585 in 9-10, which was a little under 12%. Last year we had 92 kids out of our 545, which is just under 17%. So again, 23 students, but as a percentage of our total population, certainly a significant increase. Okay, so naturally, needier students are costlier. There's no other way to put it. So when we get to the next slide, you're going to see how that translates to the budgetary impact. So any questions on just in general on the trends, the student demographics?
Can I just, and again, I'm finally starting to understand IEP and 504 after our trip to the convention. So the students with disabilities, that category is IEP only, not 504?
Yes, correct.
Because 504 should include kids with physical disabilities and things like
Right.
that.
Correct.
So you're really talking about
That number's
students with educational, this is students with educational needs.
Correct.
Is that-
And this does
Okay.
not does
Okay.
not reflect the total number of students receiving services.
Right, right.
So
So
that-
this is IEP. These are
Right.
kids with IEPs,
Right.
so it's
And
educational.
this is taken right off of the state report card.
Okay,
So it's submitted to
okay.
SCP.
I just want to understand.
And it's a wide range of disabilities as well. It's not specific to any. There are students that are at outside placements that don't attend school here at HCS.
Right.
There are students, so it is a gamut of services. But so the next slide, we talk about the 2 main cost drivers, and this is I feel like we're constantly talking about this every year. The two main cost drivers: special education, which again is tied directly to the student information on the previous slide, and then employee benefits. Just as an aside, when Bill and I were putting this together, any blip on any one of these charts, we could spend days on. If we start asking how, why, what happened, any one of these years, any one of these categories, any one of these bars, we could drill down and spend hours. I'd love to. Probably not in this setting, but if there's questions, please come see me. Come see Bill. We'd love to sit down and talk about it. We do it internally all the time. But we try the purpose of these graphs is to show trends. So we kind of cherry-picked the information because they're the main cost drivers, but we wanted to show the relationship with these cost drivers compared to all the other spending in the district. So in this graph, the top of the yellow bar would represent the total spending, general fund expenditures in the district for that year, okay? And I put the number down here at the bottom for reference, okay? So you can see in 9-10, our total spending was just over 10 million. In 18-19, we were at 12.7 million. The first shade that I want to draw your attention to is this red color, which is our total spending on special education and alternative education. You can see, again, during that time period, in 2009-10, when we had the 69 students in the CSE, we had a total expenditures of $820,000. Now, that represents roughly 8% of the total budget in 9-10. You can see, looking at last year, that amount more than doubled, or about $1.7 million of 12.7, which is about 14% of the total budget. So again, it's sort of what you would expect based on the previous slide. Change in student needs directly related to the expenditures. Employee benefits, again, is the other main cost driver. And similar to the red, you can see the trend, sort of the height of the yellow bar. In 2009-10, 22.5% of the total budget was employee benefits, and about 28.5%, $3.6 million in 2018-19. The number one reason for that is health insurance premiums for all of our employees. Our bill, if you will, or what the district's expense for health insurance premiums has gone up about 60% in the last 10 years. So if you look at that line item in the budget, so over 10 years, 60%. And believe it or not, compared to the private sector, other industries, it's pretty darn good. Our premium increases have been pretty moderate. We're usually in the 5 to 7% range. And for the benefits that we offer all of our employees and is remarkable, frankly. The reality is it is a major cost driver. So if you take the total budget amount, which again is down here for reference, 10 million 10 years ago to 12.7 million, and you subtract the yellow and the red lines, the blue represents, it's sort of a catch-all, all the other expenditures. So you can see the blue has been pretty consistent. So what, again, the purpose of this is to show that the big impact on our budget has been primarily in these two areas. You can see every year it's been pretty consistent, the amount we spend on everything else. These 2 years where it dips kind of low, that's when we had some debt service fall off the books. So in essence, we were reinvesting that money we were paying on our debt, into other areas. So, we were spending about 70%. This blue represents about 70%. So as a total, about 30% of the total budget was on special ed and employee benefits, 70% on everything else. This past year, it's about 43% on these two figures, and only about 57% on everything else. So there's been a major shift on where the dollar in the budget each year is going. And the reason we bring this up is there's nothing to indicate that this is going to change. Based on the trend in our demographics, our student population, the needs of our students, and if we really want to focus on health insurance premiums. It also includes contributions to the retirement system, which is slightly volatile, but certainly not the impact that health insurance has. Any questions on that? Comments? Feedback? Confusion? Again, I'm trying to sort of navigate through this, present it in a way that shows the trends that are important without totally overwhelming you with numbers.
Thank you for that.
I hope it's working. This last slide, again, and this is more transitioning to as we get into the budget development for next year. And again, these slides are independent of each other, so you see some of the same colors, but just forget about the last slide, let's focus on this one now. So when we talk about the budget and making any kind of major changes to the budget, changes in offerings, providing services, it comes down to people. So if we look at the cost of our personnel in the district, and this is for all district personnel, faculty, staff, administration, all employees of HCS. This graph shows the total payroll and total employee benefits for all of our employees year by year for the last 10 years. Again, at the bottom, you'll see the total expenditures as a reference point. So you can see 10 years ago, 6.7 million or so out of 10 million, 66.8% of all the dollars in the budget went towards personnel, payroll and benefits. Last year, 9.1 million of 12.7, up to almost 72% of the budget. Now, similar to the previous slide, you can see the red part, which I think was red on the last one, or yellow. The employee, that was yellow on the last one. I should switch that, I'm sorry. So the yellow on the last one, that is similar. You'll see just by the height of those bars, how much of the total personnel costs are in benefits compared to payroll or salaries. You can see this is much more, there is a trend line there, you can hardly see it, but this is much more steady with payroll. Over that 10-year period, again, the employee benefits have gone up about 60%. The health insurance. Payroll's only gone up 25% over that 10-year period. Total general fund expenditures that 10-year period, 27%. So, if you just look at that sort of in a linear sense, 27% over 10 years, 2.7%. Payroll is much more in line with total spending. It's the employee benefits that really have taken off. Now, why is that important? If we're looking to add things into the budget, in all likelihood, it's going to involve people. If we're in a situation where we have real tough decisions to make, we need to find areas where we need to curtail spending. In most cases, in all likelihood, it's going to involve people. Now, the good thing is we do have opportunities, and part of the reason why these blue bars are more consistent is we do have opportunities to make changes to attrition. When we had retirements, we were able to replace people with people making a lower salary. In some cases, we don't have to replace people. That's happened over the last 10 years. So, as we embark on this budget process, keep that in mind, that that's really where the money is. Any questions on this?
Matt, will you talk a little bit to the misconception of replacing a retiree for a less amount, that cost savings or lack of?
Yeah. So while there is a cost savings, almost in all cases, when you're able to do so through attrition. However, this total employee benefits chunk includes the post-employment benefits of retirees. So if we have a staff member that retires and is entitled to post-employment benefits after their retirement, the district is still contributing to those. So even into retirement, oftentimes I think the easy thing to think is that you have an $80,000 employee, you replace them with a $50,000 employee, you save $30,000. Well, that's just in salary. When you consider the amount of post-employment benefits you're still paying for that retiree, cuts into that considerably. In some cases, you have retirees that leave the district with an individual health plan. If your new hire has a family health plan, that $30,000 is virtually gone. So there's a lot of factors that can impact just how much you save through attrition, but we have to consider the total cost of employing somebody, not just the salary. And then lastly, this is something that Bill and I kind of threw in at the end, and we kind of stumbled upon this on accident. And this is a terrible chart. It's very, what word did we settle on, Harry? Juvenile?
I said no such thing. You characterize it.
I characterize it. I need to explain it though. So in the building, we have what we call our yellow cards. Employees here will know what I'm talking about. We have, like our staff, faculty and staff directory, yellow cards in the district. So every year, about 6 weeks into the year, we have our yellow card that lists all of our faculty and staff. So when you look at, our drop in enrollment, our change in student needs, I thought, well, I wonder what it looks like if I pull the yellow card from 2009-10 and kind of look at who we employed, and then if I look at it last year, I wonder what it looks like. Oddly enough, and I was surprised to see this, in 2009-10 there were 112 people on the yellow card. We had 112 employees. Now this does not factor in full-time equivalency, so this is full-time, part-time, just 112 names. Last year we had 113. In 2009-10, our OT, occupational therapy services, were provided by an itinerant through BOCES, so they weren't on the yellow card. Last year, our OT is an employee. So virtually, we have the same number of employees last year as we did 10 years ago. Now, when you look at the different categories of employees, and we know this, if you asked any one of us internally, we would have quickly been able to answer. Where have you had the biggest change in staffing in terms of adding personnel, subtracting personnel? When we look at our instructional support staff, so teachers, aides, teaching assistants, we have 10 more, or we had last year, 10 more aides and TAs in the building than we did 10 years ago. Okay, so, and again, why? Tied directly to student needs, particularly through the CSE. These are students that need additional supports in the school setting. So if you look at that and you say, all right, 10 years have gone by, we have the same number of employees. We have 10 more aides and TAs providing support. Where's the negative 10? We've added 10 here, where have the negatives gone? And here they are. So again, this is only where we've added and subtracted. So this isn't going to be an add up to 112 and 113. It's kind of two separate visuals. Number one, in administration, 10 years ago we had a position, coordinator of enrichment technology. And again, last year we had PPS director, 2 principals, business official, superintendent, and a technology director. So we're down 1. And this year we're at 5. But again, we're just looking at the same 10-year period. Pre-K through 5, regular classroom teachers, 1 reduction. Foreign language, 1 Latin teacher. Music, 1 person less. It's actually a half-time. Part-time music teacher, we had 3.5 FTEs, 4 people 10 years ago, now we're down to 3. Phys ed, same thing. Science, same thing in secondary. And then 2 in food service, 2 in transportation. So what does that mean? Well, again, regarding the plus 10, directly tied to student needs. The minuses, you'll see that for the most part, 4 of those are non-instructional, directly based on need. We don't have as many kids on the bus, we don't have as many kids eating lunch, so we were able to reduce staffing. You'll see the majority of the instructional pieces are in the secondary. If you kind of dive into the numbers with our enrollment, our elementary enrollment is virtually unchanged in the last 10 years. It's the secondary where our enrollment is declining. So, in the principals, feel free to jump in, but I believe, I'm confident saying, we needed 3.5 science teachers to offer all the science that our kids needed 10 years ago. Last year, we only needed 3. Same with music, same with foreign language. Phys ed is basically the same boat, although some of that has to do with who the athletic director is. But in looking at this, and I said to Bill, I said, I know, You know, I can't think of, in the last 10 years, any position that's been eliminated strictly as a budgetary decision. I really don't. I think it's remarkable that we've been able to continue to do what we do here. If you look at our offerings. So just one other nugget that I looked into, and Mark helped me out with this, Bill helped me out with this. You know, while clearly we have more needy students. We've seen an increase in the last 10 years. We also have more kids taking AP classes last year than we did 10 years ago. And we have more AP course offerings last year than we had 10 years ago. So, you know, that's a testament to these guys, Kevin, Bill, Mark, it's going to get into it this year. You know, we still strive to do everything for all our kids to the best of our ability. I think we've done a pretty good job. So, you know, next month, my update at the board meeting will be more specific on the actual budget for next year. The outlook is not positive. You know, I think you guys get a lot of the same emails that I get from the School Board Association. You know, there's talks of a very significant state budget deficit, billions and billions of dollars, a lot of that tied to Medicaid. Unfortunately, a state budget deficit usually translates into smaller aid increases for public schools in the state. So, you know, all that considered, we'll probably have a rough draft. We're going to have meetings with the department heads and the building leaders, talk about wish list items, talk about planning, personnel. So we're on our way, but we felt that this information was important to provide context and provide a framework of what drives our decisions and what we're contending with throughout the process. Bill, Mark, Chris, Kevin, I don't know if you have anything you want to add. Any of you folks, if you have comments, questions. As always, if something comes up after the fact, please call, come in and sit down. We'd be happy to talk about it.
Thank you very much.
I might add too, it wasn't one of the rest, but the RTI supports that Robin touched on a little bit, and she talked about how she couldn't provide those supports. So we have a population of that's changed and more poverty, and with that, our services, but not just services in special education that was highlighted, but services in RTI, kids that are struggling or maybe below grade level that aren't qualifying for special education. We haven't really added much in that area. And the reason being is it's not a requirement of, you know, a teacher can deliver, the general ed classroom teacher can deliver the RTI service. Yet special education services are requirements by law, so that's where you'd see the special education growing. Yeah, we could look into it and get more details, but I'd have to say our AIS services have not increased. They've kind of probably been right along the same lines as the teachers.
Is that becoming one of many straws that breaks the camel's back for teachers?
Yeah, it is, because you don't always have, because we do still have RTI support, but you don't have all of the supports that kids need when you're struggling, unless they have an IEP.
That's what I'm wondering from this last chart here. This is how many we have as employees, or how many we had last year. What's the ideal? Like, it seems like we're missing in so many areas.
That's what we'll bring to you next month, Corey. So
Yeah, these are only the areas where there's been a change in the last 10 years.
So our plan next month, we're going to meet next month. We're meeting departmentally, and we're going to take needs and wants and provide you a big picture of what's ideal and how do we match the ideal to our revenues and start funneling it down once we get state runs and we know exactly what our funding sources will be and what our funding will look like.
Matt, this is a broader political question, but do you have any idea what how the increase in health benefits compares to the consumer price index? And I don't mean necessarily, I mean, you had mentioned that compared to the private sector, 6% versus like an average annual 6% is pretty is low. So I'm just curious.
I don't, I mean, I know as far as the CPI, I know that there's, you know, the CPI is tied, is an important factor in the tax cap. So I know that the statewide average CPI has been over 2% over the last couple of years, just as it's related to the tax cap. As far as what that number's been, I don't think it's been as high as 6.
Well, I mean, I know it hasn't, I'm just curious.
Certainly outpacing that, but no, I don't know specifically.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I can Google it.
And I had a question that's budget related but unrelated to the data you've given us, which thank you for this. To me, this is great. I think this is what the board wanted as walking through this. So I appreciate you taking the time and effort to do this. But again, revenues, state, tax base. There's discussion of a significant housing development within the tax district, or within the school tax district. Is there, do you know, is there a timeline on that? Is there a?
I don't know. I know there's a hearing next Thursday night.
Okay.
The 19th. You know, as you know, we, you know, the district, primarily myself on behalf of the district, has been very involved with the PCD, with Colgate, the village, the town, regarding housing in general. You know, we've made it very clear how we feel housing has impacted HCS, as have the other major employers in the area, with the hospital, Colgate. So, yeah, we know, we're aware of this proposed development. You know, we certainly support it. Now, as far as the impact on HCS, specifically the budget, it's too early to tell. I think it's, I'm certain that it certainly won't have any impact on next year in the budget development, so for 2021. And then, you know, the biggest thing for us, I think, is the hopes that where we would benefit most from any type of project would be Lucille. I think that's hands down the #1 area in which we could really benefit.
Would be what?
Enrollment.
You know, and I think, you know, again, I think, you know, based on the conversations and based on what people have identified as their need is, you know, I think there's a desire to have development that attracts young families to want to live in Hamilton, attract young families to Hamilton, and allow them to stay in Hamilton, which we would benefit most by students. So,
Number-wise, what would you want to see?
what would I want to see?
Obviously, like 1,000 would be great, but what would be impactful?
What would be impactful? I don't know. I'm not sure. Because,
Like,
you know,
you're talking 1 or 2, or more like 50 or 60?
Yeah, 50 or 60.
60.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a couple kids here and there is not going to move the needle, but,
50 kids.
you know, and frankly, we need to have, it's different for a school district than it is other taxing jurisdictions. You know, the town and the village have a direct benefit simply by adding to the tax base. It's not that simple for school districts because some of our wealth measures are based on property values on a per pupil basis. So, in a sense, if we're adding to our tax base but not increasing enrollment, it could have a detrimental impact. Ultimately, we're going to be wealthier on paper, which in turn leads to less state aid. You know, in the tax cap area. So it's complicated. It's not as straightforward as it is for towns and villages. So, you know, the hope for us is that by adding development, by adding to the tax base, we would also be adding to our student enrollment. but again, you know, how many, you know, where's that tipping point of, you know, X number of kids doesn't matter, and X plus one is where we really benefit. I'm not sure what that number is. It may be difficult to quantify. You know, if it's high needs kids, you don't know. We'd certainly love to reverse the trend of the declining enrollment, just in a general sense. But we will be, we're supportive of the project. We will be involved to the extent that we can be. I think there'll be more information publicly available after next week's hearing. It's on the 19th, I believe, so.
Thank you.
From an enrollment standpoint, I mean, this is actually stable for about 8 years. Is that Pollyanna, or is that?
Well, it's kind of tough, because if you go back one more year, it's over 600.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I sort of alluded to at the beginning. It's tough to really, you know, if you go back 50 years, you're going to see a more severe decline. You know, some of those, you know, 11, 12, 13 years ago, there was a more significant drop off, but really wanted to be consistent with, I didn't want to show you budget figures for 10 years, but show enrollment figures for 20 to show a steeper drop off. So we really tried to keep things confined to 10 years.
Does it matter that the drop off is more in the secondary than elementary?
Absolutely, yeah. When, oh geez, Bill, we're going to be, so a lot of the figures that the state ed department uses, they don't use straight enrollment counts. They use a figure that's called RWADA, regional weighted average daily attendance. And secondary students count more than elementary students. They're weighted more heavily. So it's, for every secondary student, there's a factor of 1.25. So technically, if you lose a secondary student, your Arwada suffers more severely. And the reason behind that is because if you look at the total, if you look at everything, the totality of everything, the cost to educate secondary students is generally higher than elementary on a per pupil basis. So the Arwada is more heavily weighted than secondary.
And that's true of raising too.
What's that?
Yeah, that's to raise them. They're more expensive to raise.
So, yeah, and that's when we get into the BOCES budget, a lot of those numbers are Arwada based, where all the districts Arwada is factored in. So it's, yeah, it's more.
So it's double.
Yeah, but again, I don't know how many kids it takes to really move the needle, but it certainly is weighted more heavily, without a doubt.
Anybody have any other questions for Matt at this time?
I love it when people come in and sit with me and talk about this.
It really does, actually.
It really does.
Every time you walk by his office, I gotta show you something.
I get sick of seeing these guys, you know. I drag them in and they're just like, oh.
That brings us to.
Thanks, Matt.
That brings us to 8.1, administrators reports. Matt, do you have anything non-budget wise, since you just did budget?
No, I better not.
Okay.
Bill will update you on the capital project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, just picked you.
It's all right.
Your turn.
Grab some notes. Highlights. So we're looking, continue to look at RTI and social emotional learning. We talked a little bit about that last time. I've gotten together with my counselors and my psychologists to look at social emotional supports on that tier, on the tier 1 and the tier 2 and the tier 3 for our students and building a program for that. We currently have a really strong like reading and writing, pretty good math, but we're looking to add to that. So this past week we met and we've been looking at universal screeners. So we have universal screeners for subject areas in reading, writing, and math. And a universal screener would be one that every child takes 3 times a year at our school. So you get a beginning of the year report and a mid-year report, and an end of the year, and that data that we get from that helps us to drive what we do for kids. So we looked at a universal screener for social emotional learning, and we decided on the best, 3 bests. We feel it's going to be best for our kids. We've ordered that, and we're looking forward to implementing that. We can use that to really help measure a lot of the things that we do. In fact, we were talking this week about Positivity Project, and how are we going to know if that's actually working or what kind of effects that's going to have on our kids? Anecdotally, we can see things, and but how can we really measure that? Where like this universal screener, if we had it to start the year, we would have that, and then we could go mid-year and end of year, and see that Positivity Project may have moved the needle on certain things. So we started talking a little bit about Positivity Project too, and one of the measures we're looking at right now is that we can use is discipline referrals to the office. And so I've kept track of that for a good 10 years now, and reported in the last couple of years how that's kind of gone up. Every year we have more referrals, kids are, and I think that reflects what Matt showed us earlier too, in our demographics. It also comes with that referrals and behavioral issues. So we're looking at that, and I'm currently seeing a slightly lower trend. We only have 3 months to gauge, and really you can't count September because we just started Positivity Project. But as we get into the year, we'll be able to take a look at those referrals as one indicator. Perhaps attendance could be another indicator that kids are feeling good about being here, so good about each other. So attendance could be another thing. So those are a couple of things we're looking at. Positivity Project is going really well. My observations that I'm doing this year, I've asked the classroom teachers when I go into your room, I'd like to see a Positivity Project lesson and what you're doing with that. So I get a really good conversation with the teachers after they present. We talk a lot about how it's going, things that are working really well, not so well. And then that all relates to the report card that the elementary is working on this year, changing our report card for next year. We would like a report card, and I've stated this before, that has more value in social emotional learning, or maybe you call it soft skills or social skills. We're working on our school team with that. I haven't met with every teacher. I will have met with every teacher soon about what their thoughts are personally on the current report card, what they like about it, what they would add to, how they see social emotional learning. Is it something you want to grade? What would that look like? So we're having a lot of discussions around that. So there'll be more to come with our report card. Oh, we had a parent survey that went out. Many of you probably saw that or took that. We had 59 parents fill that out, which was good. Of that, 93% or 54 of the 59 wanted to see more social emotional skills on the report card. And there were other questions to help us get a few other things: clarity of the report card, organization of the report card, those sorts of things. So we've got a lot of really good data that we can use when we go into our teams to help rewrite that report card for the following year. We would like to reflect for sure the social emotional learning. So that's coming. Concert tomorrow night. See everybody there, or if you can be there, would be great. I did want to recognize Jessica Hoopel, our new music teacher, who did have our students sing tree lighting. She took the choral group down there. The mayor sent a thank you. That was real nice. But an extra thing that she wanted to do with our kids, and a really important thing. So.
My turn?
Yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to give the board an update on the Smart Schools Bond Act, the saga of the Smart Schools Bond Act. So the phase 1, the SSBA section is nearly complete. We're in the process of installing interactive whiteboards into 21 classrooms based on what was written in the first phase of the Smart Schools Bond Act. From here, once those are in, the replacement plan will be to replace approximately 3 classrooms a year out of my budget until Everybody's got new equipment, beginning with the oldest equipment. I told you before that the first part of the SSBAA was to complete the one-to-one device initiative, which is complete. So that we're nearly done with the first part of the Smart Schools Bond Act. The second part of the Smart Schools Bond Act is the section dedicated to security equipment. That application that has been completed and is ready to submit by me. The only thing that we need to do left is we have to meet with New Life because they are required to include them in any bond application that we submit. We've got a meeting scheduled with the principal over there early next week. I hope to have that submitted by Monday. I don't know if Phil or Matt wanted to speak about what further meetings, or we'll talk about that at a later time. Yeah. So, there's more coming in terms of security technology. And then I've had a number of students who know that I'm a video game player talk to me about competitive esports. I don't know if you guys are familiar with competitive esports, but this is essentially competing, playing video games for money. There are professional leagues, collegiate leagues, now there are high school leagues. I began exploring it myself, and I found some leagues and some schools that are competing, local schools that are competing, and so I decided that I would announce an interest meeting for this. So I announced the meeting, and I printed out a sign-up sheet with 25 lines on it, and I had 45 very enthusiastic students show up today. They're interested in having a competitive esports team here. So I definitely have some logistical work to do. I'm not sure how we can support it. Well, that's what they were asking me today. They're like, are you going to have cuts?
You're going to have cuts?
I don't even know. But students, there's a really big and interesting group, diverse group of kids who are really into it, interested in it. So more to come on that. So we're just in the exploratory phase. I've got a phone conversation on Friday with the commissioner of this esports league, talking about how it's going to work. I'm probably going to ask some of our generous benefactors maybe to help us, but it should be pretty interesting. So we'll invite you all to our first competition.
Yes, please. The word of my college student when that got to him was great source of scholarships. The first thing he said, I thought he'd be upset that it didn't happen before he graduated, and he was totally, it's huge source of scholarships. So
yeah, well, the league that
more power to him.
I'm looking at has actually got, when the students sign up to compete, there are sections where you can check off whether or not you will allow recruiters or scouts to look at their statistics. Yeah, they're looking at what we're doing. I'm not kidding.
There are kids going to college on esports scholarships.
Yeah.
Let's not get our enrollment numbers, man.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
Transfer rules.
There will be transfer rules.
Just like the other sports. There will be.
We're recruiting.
Wow.
And my son all of a sudden had 3 or 4 new colleges that he's suddenly interested in, and after doing some digging, they have esports leagues. So now he's interested in going to those colleges. Very interesting.
More news to come.
Great, thank you.
I actually have a question. What's our professional development plan so the teachers use the interactive boards effectively?
So I'm going to have some time to work with them in our January superintendent's conference day. And then I'm hoping to continue with our sort of professional learning communities. A number of teachers who have received them have already dived right in. And then I hope to have some summer professional development as well around these boards.
Thank you.
The secondary, a lot has happened since our last meeting in November. We've had the middle school concert, we've had the high school concert, we had the middle school play, Annie Junior. I'll start with middle school play. Our student directors were walking around like 55-year-old working people during the week. They were tired, they were a little cranky, but they were super excited. They were working great with the middle school kids. So they take it very serious. They work very, very hard, and it shows. I mean, they did a great job. Last week and this week, the middle school and high school concerts, again, they take it very serious. They did a great job. In school, forum and homeroom, this is our third full week of implementing it. Well, once we get to Friday, it'll be the full week. So we are meeting with the committee next week to figure out how we want to start collecting feedback from students and teachers about how it's going. Are there ways that we can improve it? What we'd like to see different? So next week we'll decide what that's going to look like. Will it be a survey that we send out? Will we be interviewing people? So more to come on that. I've been in the classroom, which is new for me this year, and the biggest takeaways for me would be that I'm so happy that we are a small school, even though it does cause certain problems in areas, but the relationships that our students have with each other, and then the relationships the teachers have with the students, and just watching going from different classroom to different classroom and seeing that being reinforced over and over again for me. It's great to see. Our teachers have a strong grasp of what they're teaching, and the questioning that they use to get students on the right path to finding answers. So it's not the just giving notes or giving answers. It's that guidance for the students. So it's been great. Tomorrow, Tim Collins will be coming in. He's a one-man act that really has a message about digital citizenship and bullying. He's kind of expanded as well. He can cover a lot of different things. But tomorrow is going to be more about the bullying in both, in the classroom and digitally. He plays multiple characters. So he'll be one character in 1 minute, then he'll shift over to the bully, he'll shift over to a teacher, and he's very good at what he does. He's very talented, and he has a very good message as well. He was here back in 2013, from what I can tell, so it was a while ago. And then next month, we have a person coming in to talk about texting and driving. It was a horrible situation that this person went through, lost both their parents, and they're half paralyzed themselves. So they have a very strong message about texting and driving. That will be for our 9th through 12th grade students. I think that's always something that they should be reminded of, the importance of that. And then also next month, January, we'll have the PTO coming, middle school. We'll be doing the book reveal. And so we're looking forward to that. And we began conversations about capstone projects for seniors and what that might look like here at ACS.
Mark, what part of the day will those presentations take place to be able, will we get all the BOCES students and things like that? Or?
Tomorrow is going to be an assembly schedule, so that's at the end of the day. The middle school one, Tim Collins, Jay's had to be at 1 o'clock, so that'll be another one on a Monday that's in the afternoon. So if you're going in the afternoon, it's difficult. So those two would be in the afternoon. So I have to remember that for future events.
In the past, our BOCES kids, with permission from their parents, have stayed behind. And if they chose to, or they could go to the so it's up to them. Or the parents, exactly. Past was scary. So I reported, I think it was in our September meeting, we had a preliminary designation from ESSA on our accountability measures that we are in good standing. The administrative team went Tuesday to BOCES to confirm our data, and we are indeed in good standing in all of our accountability measures through ESSA. Good standing is the highest standing you can have without being a recognition school. To be a recognition school, you have to have 4s in all subcomponents. We have 3 4s and 1 3, and you also have to have a 95 participation rate in your state assessments, which we don't have. So we're close in our subgroups, we're not close in our 95% participation. So we are at the highest rating without having those 2 designations. So it's really good news. So we are able to dive into our data. There's a lot of data that the principals and Chris and I will be looking at into our subgroups and our subpopulations, exactly how those metrics scored out for us. So lots of complicated data to go through, but very good news. More good news, we were out of compliance within special ed in our indicator 13s, which is our transition plans, 2 years ago. We put a corrective plan in place. State Ed came in this year, have worked with Kevin. We just got notification that we are in compliance now. We're totally on par and in compliance, so that's really good news. So great work by Kevin and his team on that. Just some information. Patty Vaca has announced her retirement. She is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction at BOCES. So you have Jackie's departure and now Patty's departure, so 2 big shoes to fill. I've been on the interview committee for Patty or Jackie's vacancy. 2 finalists are Scott Boodleman, who is the Deputy Superintendent at BOCES, and Keith Levitano, who was the standing superintendent at Little Falls. So we had interviews this past week with both of them. They met with all the stakeholder groups. And then Stephen Todd, who is the DS for Jeff Lewis BOCES, who's leading the search, will work with the BOCES board, determine their finalists, and announce. And they're on time. So in January, they hope to make that announcement. So 2 really good finalists. And then if it's Scott, he's going to have to replace his position and Patty's position at BOCES. So lots of changes there from a district leadership standpoint through the BOCES. Capital project. We had our pre-bid meeting with our architects and potential contractors. We had approximately 15 contractors show up. There has been more that have reached out to King & King. So King & King laid out the bid process, what the scope of the project looked like. We had the plans here. They toured the building. They're up on the roof. And then on December 19th will be the bid opening. I don't know if you've noticed in the Mid-York, we had to place the bid process, what it looked like. I have that. I can dump that into the Google Drive if you would like, just so you have it. But we are on pace for our capital project.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Based on a conversation I had about the town building. Are we required by law to go with the low bidder, or is reputation of contractor a factor at all, or is it strictly the lowest bidder?
I'm not sure. Are you aware?
I think it is the low bidder, barring anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if they're really out of, if it's out of whack.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Talking about security, and in the new world we live in, when you think about security, we have to include cybersecurity. And we've talked in the past about some ransomware hacks in some local school districts. Chris and I met with Ryan Mahoney, who is the data security leader through the RIC, and he provided a framework for us. It's a process to go through to make sure our data is safe, some protocols and policies that we should be putting in place. For instance, changing our passwords on a periodic basis, backing up our systems. So Chris and I, and with the help of Ryan, will be putting some cyber plans in place, which will be part of our district safety plan. And then what happens if we are hacked? What will be our process? If we are hacked by ransomware? We do have ransomware insurance through our carrier, so we're protected there, but we are, in this day and age, we're going to have to rewrite our safety plans to include some cybersecurity safety measures, so we're working on that. So stay tuned on that. And then lastly, I hosted our first superintendent's coffee on the 25th. We had 4 board members, we had the administrative team, we had 4 community members. We had a really rich dialogue. It was a question and answer about anything pertaining to the district. Great conversations. I followed up with the 4 community members that attended. They were appreciative. We valued their input. They provided some great input to us. There's a request to add an additional coffee to talk about safety, which I'm looking at dates, and I would like to add another one for curriculum assessments. So really good way to open communication, some two-way communication with our community members. So that is what I have for my report. Sure.
That brings us to the steering committee updates.
So, talk about secondary, we met and we continue to talk about the backpack program for food, which is off the ground. The 6th grade classes, I believe, have been involved in that, so we have students working to help out with that. And that seems to be going smoothly,
Yeah.
really well. And then we talk a lot about getting more information to parents and providing kind of on the foyer where there's some racks there with information, maybe making that more, I don't know, more amenable, someplace that would be better for people to actually, when they gather there waiting for students or whenever people are coming in and out, there's actually more going on there. So we talked about maybe a screen. I don't know if that's still a possibility.
Looking into it, yeah.
So we're looking into putting up a screen there and then having content and having maybe some student-created content on there as well as some other things. And different ways to provide content to people from the school. Keep people informed, even something they can access at home, ideally. And a way of kind of helping people draw in, especially people that aren't necessarily prone to come here, something that they can access and get information from the school on their own. Maybe the type of stuff we don't normally send in announcements, but things that will be interesting to everybody. So, and then having other resources, community resources, different things. We talked about having the kids in the shop classes putting together better racks.
Yep.
Because right now there's that rack there, but the papers kind of flop down. You can't really see what they are. Right, so I think of like a better way that we can display the information that's there, so that more people are able to take it and see it and use it. Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay.
Hold on. I'll just talk loud. For elementary, we spent some time just evaluating some of our preliminary survey results. It had only been out for a couple days at that point. And then our conversation kind of went off into a direction of kind of like school culture and how to just, you know, we do a great job making HCS a welcoming place, but what can we do to really drill down to those kids with some social emotional needs and try to make them feel welcome in our community and involve those that might not always reach out for that. That lasted for a while. So, anything else?
We spent a long time on the report cards and just what the results were and how that might affect things going forward. But again, we only had 30-some results at that point.
They're coming in and we're getting good feedback, so. Okay.
That brings us to our PTO update.
Hello.
PTO.
Do I have to stand?
You can
Anything? Okay.
If you speak up, you're good.
Okay, so we have been very busy the last 4 months. I don't know if everybody is aware. I think in this room, a lot of people are aware of what we've done. But we started the year with new family packets that we sent to, I think, 25 new families. And then we helped with the back to school dash. Then we had our first fundraiser of the year, which was the book fair. We also helped with the pumpkin walk. We supplied bouncy houses, which was really a fun time. We just did a reading fair in November. And then we also organized a book swap, which
That's great.
was to get free books to people that don't necessarily have money to buy overpriced books at the book fair. So we also did a teacher chili lunch, and I think that was pretty well. Andrew Hanks made that, so he's the head chef at the Landmark, so it was delicious. I had some too. We're doing Christmas cards for the staff, and then our big project, which I've been working on for over a month, is our HCS Reads. It was formerly our One School, One Book project, where we put a book in everyone's hand in the elementary school last year, and we all read together as a district, or as a community. And so we've added the middle school this year. It's been kind of difficult, but I think next year we're going to try to add the whole school, which will probably send me over the edge. So there will be some clues. Hopefully your kids will have seen some clues, and we're trying to get excitement for this. And then on January 7th, we'll reveal the books. It's top secret till then. Don't ask me what they are. It is hopefully good. It's a way to get the whole district reading, and that's a big thing for me and the PTO. And so we're hoping that, and we're hoping to sustain it, and we're hoping next year to include the entire school with a book. But this year's elementary and middle. So, and it's been a lot. So that's it. That's all I have. So that's coming up. So look for that. And then, yeah, it's good.
We're gonna do a play again?
We're working on it. We're in the preliminary phases. Would you like to be a part of that?
Anytime. I can pull myself, I'll sign up.
Yeah.
I have video of
Great
it
actor.
Yeah.
The kickoff.
Was the kickoff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have lots of pictures.
I know, but
I think it was the beginning, right?
You're so funny.
Well, thank you, and all that are on the PTO.
Yeah.
Very.
And you don't have to pay me. It's all on. Not even a part of that.
Do we have an Emerald Foundation update?
The Emerald Foundation approved initially $2,000 and up to $4,000 for the HCS Weekend Meal Supplement Program that Jamie Boardway was the lead on. They approved money for the Take Care boxes, self-care kits that Kathy Roy was the lead on. They approved money for the Drone Ambassador t-shirts. And they are still pending on the significantly larger request from the Science Department for that new project that frankly is escaping me. But that was a $14,000 plus request, and when the Emerald Foundation gets requests that large, there's sort of a different level of angels they're looking for, and there is an angel in the wings, and they're encouraged, but it hasn't been approved as yet. And so I will make a brief commercial appeal. This time of year, like if your house and your mailbox is like mine, you are inundated with requests to make donations. The Emerald Foundation, like the Friends of Music, like the Sports Boosters, like the Hamilton Community Chest, every dollar you're able to donate comes directly back to our school and our community. So I would encourage everyone to be as generous as you can.
The Emerald Foundation is a Smile Amazon.
That's right. That's
site,
right.
option.
That's great because I just activated that in the last couple of weeks.
Larson family has donated a fair amount of money to the Emerald Foundation
Yeah,
through
it costs you nothing. You just designate who you want to be the beneficiary, and every time you buy something at Amazon, if you do it through smile.amazon.com, you can choose, to be fair, Wounded Warriors or
Yeah.
the Emerald Foundation or the Palace Theater, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't cost you a nickel to,
But the Emerald Foundation is one of them.
yeah.
to get word out about that. I wasn't aware of that.
Well, yeah, until the last month.
Yeah, because I do that, but I do all that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That brings us to the new 8.6. We need to, maybe, I would think so, reschedule our workshop that we couldn't have due to health reasons last week. Say
Sorry.
mental health for me. So I'm assuming we should wait till January, mid-January.
I'm the day off on the 25th for some reason. So.
Huh.
Oh, you want to do that? Corey's coming in on December 25th.
I'm gonna get January, and I'm like, I don't get it.
I'm going to start with a date just because I feel like it's always helpful to
Throw one
start.
out.
January 15th.
The
Okay.
week before is all good, or any other day besides the
How about the 7th?
We have a workshop on the 21st of January.
What do we do?
And then the 25th of February.
The 7th, did you say?
Yeah.
I can do the 7th.
I'm
Mark and Kevin. That's clear with that.
February or January?
January. And I'm not working that, yes, I am. I'm back to work.
Yep.
Never mind. Yeah, sorry.
Can we do 5:30? 5:30 on the 7th?
Sure.
Sorry, if I don't put this in now, it's covered in that.
We're all doing.
default is whatever first
It's gonna be more than that.
I think that's gonna be more than 1 hour.
And then, Ellen, you wanted to speak a little bit of follow-up to
I-
the correspondence that we've had.
Did. And this is something I emailed Michelle about today because I never seem to process things until the last minute. And asked to be put on the agenda. And this went back to the announcement that went out November 18th. That was very simple, very clear, very straightforward. Hamilton Central School Board of Education will be holding a board workshop on Thursday, December 5th, 2019 at 5:30. The December regular meeting will be held on Wednesday, December 11th. Both will take place in the professional development room. And Michelle and I both received feedback about essentially saying that for people who don't know what's going on, that wasn't enough information. That the person who reached out said, well, I don't know what that means, the workshop. Does that mean it's a public meeting? Does that not mean it's a public meeting? What's going on? We don't know, we don't understand. To me, I'm actually thankful for that email because number one, that means people are getting this. Number two, it means people are reading it and care. But it also seemed like an opportunity. And it didn't, again, even just driving here tonight, it just sort of hit me that if we structured our announcements, and it's just something I wanted to have a conversation about as a board, structuring the announcements as, you know, is it a public meeting or an executive session? Will there be a public comment session or not? We all know that the workshop is a public meeting, but there's no public comment session, or that's generally the intent of the workshop. But 99.9% of the population doesn't know that. And then just sort of a little bullet summary of what we're doing. So like if that announcement had said, we'll be holding a board workshop, you know, which is a public meeting without public comment session on Thursday, December 5th, to discuss what they learned at the NISPA conference. Or, you know, just a little summary of what that was about, because that was, I can understand how somebody who had no idea what was going on would have no idea what that meeting was about. And so one of our goals as a board has been to figure out how do we communicate better with people, because we've really struggled to communicate with people. And this seemed like an opportunity. And I just wanted to have the chance to talk about it. And just as simple as public or not public, comment session or no comment session, and what are we doing at that meeting? To sort of expand our announcements a little bit. I don't know how everybody feels about that. I just wanted to.
Alan, I made copies for everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I was hogging them. Okay, So that's page.
The double-sided.
Oh, so everyone, oh, okay.
Thank you.
Anybody out there want to?
Jess.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you.
Thank
Yeah. So, that was just something I wanted to talk about, because this has been one of our goals, is communicating, and I was actually happy to receive that feedback, because it seemed like an opportunity to maybe make a small change that would be more effective. And it also means whatever we're doing, get out to people that don't normally, because the person who reached out to us is not somebody who I've ever heard of from before. So I felt like at least people who we might not have normally been getting out to, we're getting out to now. So I don't know if there was anything different about how you put this out.
No, she's responded in the past before.
Has she?
Like
Okay.
February, they got
Okay.
something from them.
I don't remember.
So,
But, so.
No, I think simple, easy changes would be beneficial.
Well, and even for the regular meetings, direct them where they can find the detailed
yeah,
agenda.
Lacey, like on board docs, agendas on board docs or something.
The school
On the
website.
website, on the school website.
Or maybe even having on the Board of Education website, there's really no information here for somebody who wants to know what the Board of Education really is. Right? So maybe a thing, you know.
Well,
we
but the
meet
main
monthly,
page
The
doesn't
main
these are what
page
the-
says everything.
Yeah, the main page has a ton of information if you scroll down. Okay, I mean, not where you're
I
looking.
mean, there's stuff for,
Are you on board docs for the Board of Education?
I think he's on the website.
If you go to board docs, all
yeah,
all
but I
your
think like
meetings
on
are
this,
there,
on this
all
main
your-
page, I don't know
all of your
what Board
descriptions are
Docs
there.
is or what, like, I think we could do a little bit more friendliness of, you know, and what you said, there's, you know, what are the things? There's regular meetings have this is the set agenda, there's workshops, there's retreats, what those all are. And who's invited there and to what, and what they can see, you know, which ones, you know, a workshop's not gonna have minutes. They're not detailed minutes of everything that happened.
Right.
But our regular meetings have detailed minutes and they have a video that are attached, right? So, I think just that information, I think you're right, Michelle, for, doing that kind of work is always good.
So, and then the other sort of feedback that came back was not knowing where the professional development team was. So,
Say that.
you know, that's something else that we need to work on, sort of communicating
But-
with folks.
And on the agenda now, I put that because there was a comment on the agenda, and right on board docs, you can see that I put, right on the very first one, it'll say, next to the superintendent's office.
Perfect.
On the bigger board docs.
Yeah, no, that's
So-
great. And I didn't, you know,
Good.
it just, again, it was an opportunity to me that, to recognize.
To get it cleaned up with it.
Is there any reason why we can't just put a number on the door?
There is a number outside the door, I
Okay,
think.
then, okay, then.
See, like online, it even says PD room. So again, for
All
somebody that
meetings
doesn't
begin
know.
at 6 PM at the PD room. Yeah, on board docs, it just says PD room. It doesn't say next to the superintendent.
This is on the
On the website,
website, on the main page.
Oh, it's on the main,
Oh,
I'm sorry,
that's
it's on the
the main-
website on the main page, my fault, yeah.
It says PD room.
Yeah, we can make those changes.
That brings us
Yep.
up.
Thank you, sorry.
That brings us to community participation. Anybody? There.
All eyes on you.
Give you some time.
Well, on the main page.
When is board docs?
There will be no voting tonight during or after executive session, never during, but there will be nothing after executive session. Just thought I would announce that. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session so we can discuss particular individuals.
I'll move.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.